Ramble.
Welcome to Curious with Josh Peck. Start the show. What's up? Welcome back to the show. I'm Josh Peck. You are the listener, and this is the Curious Podcast with me, Josh Peck. I'm that guy. Hope you all had an incredible weekend and are having an incredible week. I just got back from like a long-ass business trip. I was doing something for Bank of America in Pennsylvania, a social media activation, which was actually a really good time because it was held at like a sleepaway camp, which I haven't been to since I was 9, and went home from early, as in like 27 days early from a 30-day planned sleepaway trip because I was homesick and I missed my mom. And I realized quickly that I was going to be in a tent with 6 other boys and what I deemed to be an unfit counselor, and thought better of it and decided that it would be best if I started crying uncontrollably so that the camp staff and administrators would quickly put me on the phone with my mom, and I knew that I had her just wrapped around my chubby little finger and that she would, lickety split be in Connecticut the next day to come pick me up. And she was there, and I went home, and it was she probably didn't get her money back from the camp. But you know what? I'm over it, and I hope that she is too. But yeah, it was a good trip. I was in Pennsylvania for that. Then I went and spoke at Bucknell University in Lewisburg, PA. Great kids. 1,200 kids came to watch me talk about shit and try to make them laugh, sort of, maybe. No, it was good. I've done like 10 of these college gigs over the last year, and I always have a really nice time. And it's cool to see the turnout and the effect, and to sort of have that college experience, if not more than for an hour or two, because I didn't get that. And I think it's sort of charming and attractive. And I wonder, I think about that I have a kid on the way, and that like I really can't wait for my kid to have that experience of, just being at a college and making friends and living in dorms in a bunk bed, preferably with like one of those bunk beds where the desk is under it, so they're like doing their homework in this little like hutch, built-in rooms plus Ashley furniture, sort of loft bed thing that you can only really own till you're like in your mid-20s, because if you have one of those after that, it's just weird. It's just infantile that you sleep higher than 3 feet off the floor. But yeah, I can't wait for my kid to sort of have that experience, and I hope they're smart and do well in academics, because I was not that way. But I would be sad. I would be sad to see them so far away from me. I was looking at those kids, and I had a very dad moment of like, God, like your parents must miss you. Or some of your parents suck, I'm sure, and don't miss you. They're just happy to, be in their own routine, doing their thing. But I'm sure the majority, a good amount, miss you guys, and I'm sure they live all over the country, and they're hoping that you're not drinking too much and making complete fools out of yourselves, which I'm sure most of them are. But no, they were smart kids, nice kids. It's a good time. I like the college gigs. It's nice. It's a new thing for me. What's going on in the news? Kavanaugh, he's on the Supreme Court. I don't want to politicize this podcast because I'm not the one. I think if I have any sort of good quality, it's my awareness of which that my opinion is probably not the best to voice and things of this matter, and that people like, I don't know, Trevor Noah or Bill Maher or John Oliver are probably more fit to sort of expound on the things that I feel, because I think I probably share a political sensibility with all those guys, because I look up to them. Well, I like them. I don't know if I look up to them. I like them though. But yeah, it's been an interesting thing, and we'll see what happens. But sure is democracy in action, isn't it? I mean, our elected officials confirmed this guy. You know what I mean? So I might not love it, and people might not love it, and some people like it. I don't know. But Inevitably, this is the system at work. And if you want to change it, vote for it. Go out and vote. Do that shit because you can vote soon. I don't know when exactly. I know I was about to sound like someone who really was responsible and cared about his civic duty. I care enough to mention it here, and I hope that you all Google the exact date when it is our turn to vote. I believe it's sometime early November. So best of luck. And then I watched the Conor McGregor Khabib fight this weekend. UFC. I actually watched it with my big brother because I was in Florida for my nephew's bar mitzvah, which was a time. It's actually a good time. And I was with my brother watching it, and basically, if you don't follow it, there was a big lead up to this, and Conor, being the trash talking sort of savant that he is, attacked just Khabib on every level of his humanity and said all the things one should never say to another human being, even if it's all out of the desire to sell a fight and make unheard amounts of money in doing so. But yeah, Conor trash talked him good. Khabib took it to him in the ring, submitted him lickety split, and then proceeded, once he won, to jump over the cage and start a small riot in the T-Mobile Arena by going after Conor McGregor's trainers. And then some of Khabib's teammates went after Conor, and it was a whole fucking thing. And it was slightly wish fulfillment, I'm sure, for every fight fan, as I am one of them, where WWE and professional fighting merge to where it becomes just this like real spectacle. Like, it's one thing for it to happen in the ring, but then as soon as it starts happening outside the ring and you think like fucking Undertaker and John Cena are going to come back up Khabib in some hardcore match outside the ring, and then, Stone Cold and the Hardy Boys are going to run in and back up McGregor, and it's just going to turn into like this crazy Royal Rumble UFC style, and Joe Rogan's in the middle of it, and then Joe Rogan gets hit with a chair and he's down, and I don't know. It was so in one way it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening. And then the adult in me thought better of it and was like, this is really unacceptable. And I think probably both these guys are to blame in some respect. And I had that adult moment. I remember, like, after the initial excitement of, oh my God, he's over the cage, he's in the audience, everyone's going nuts. Like, I then 8 seconds later, I was like, oh, this is incredibly dangerous. Like, this was a bad idea, but it was exciting, but dangerous, and just a bad idea. Glad no one got too hurt. But that's what adults do. We worry about people getting hurt. We worry about ourselves getting hurt. I gingerly walk downstairs at this point. I'm very careful, I feel like in your teens and your 20s, you don't give a shit. You're like, I don't care if I get bruised up, break a limb, whatever. I'm going to be just fine. I will recuperate in weeks. But now, fuck that. I'm like, people be like, yo, you want to play pickup basketball? I'm like, why don't you calm yourself there, brother? No, I don't, because I like my ACLs, and I don't want to rip every tendon in my knee going for a fadeaway, or like trying to fucking, I don't know sports terms, but do some cool spin move and my knee leaves my body for a pickup basketball game that means nothing. We're not getting paid for this. You're an accountant. I'm an actor, kind of, and a podcaster, and a social media personality, and I need my knees. And I can't be, trying to have my moment here on the court with you and put my body at risk. I have errands. I have important things to do. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's one thing growing up fat that fascinates me is because, like, I never had that competitive spirit, at least physically, because I just knew I couldn't compete. I wasn't blessed in that way. And so I'll see guys who were probably once very athletic in high school or college, and then they get into their 30s and 40s and they play these pickup games of fucking flag football or, 5-on-5 basketball into their 30s and 40s, and they just go so hard. And I just think it's gross and annoying. And I'm like, all right, well, don't be mad when you fucking, annihilate your rotator cuff when like that elbow that you're like throwing into people's ribs hurts you for the next 11 weeks and you're not sure why. It's because that pickup game that you made so important because you felt like you were reliving your youth at whatever, high school you were at. It's because you went too hard because you cared too much about something that no one, after a certain age, recreational sports shouldn't matter. It just doesn't need to be this competitive. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird tangent. What else? Yeah, I've been fascinated by the infantilizing sort of nature of adults as of late because I feel like adults, or at least the ones I'm coming in contact with, are like all trying to relive their youth. And I think it has to do a lot with like the reboot nature and everything's being rebooted from our childhood or from our 20s because I just think, we're sort of out of good ideas, but more so, I just feel like everyone wants to feel what it was like when they were 16. I'm like, I can't tell you how many adults I know with annual passes to Disneyland. And listen, no tea, no shade, no lemonade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to hate on it, but I just find it weird to be like in your early 30s without a kid walking around downtown Disney. Forgive me, so sue me. I mean, no, it's a dope place, and this is no reflection on, theme parks in general. I just, or like adult summer camp or frickin', yeah, or I just feel like a lot of people need to grow up. I'm a big fan of growing up. I like being a grown up. I always wanted to be a grown up as a kid. I actually thought the whole kid thing was like, I remember that parents and people would say like, enjoy it now. It'll never be as easy as it is right now. I'm like, it's not so fucking easy. Mr. Simmons, it's not so easy. Even now at 16 or 12. And what sucks more right now is that I'm like powerless because I'm a child. And so I don't get to make decisions. But when I can, I think I'm going to feel a lot more secure about life and things. So I don't get the whole need to go back and relive childhoods and impose them on other people. Like Seinfeld has a great joke about childhoods or like the invention of our parents, of like the 20s and on. Because before that, before the 1920s, nobody fucking had a childhood, right? I mean, they did, but not really, because once you were of a certain age, you went and worked in your father's coat factory or your grandmother's bakery, or you were like on a farm and you were a farmhand. Like, when you were of a certain age and ability, you worked, God damn it. And like, I don't know. And then our parents or their parents, somebody had a childhood before us and they felt like it was something special and ultra idyllic. And so now we're just like trying to preserve that for our kids. And God forbid they should taste any bit of the world and its ups and downs and challenges before the ripe old age of 20 or like 18 and beyond. And so we're all trying to get back there, but I'm not trying to get back to my childhood. My childhood was what it was. It was fine, but I'm happy to not revisit it. Man, this is a long rant today. Sorry. Guess I had some shit to say. Today's episode has Josh Gad on it. Heard of him? Josh Gad. Oh, just the voice of Olaf in Frozen. Also Book of Mormon. Also Mad Things. So many things. Movies, television. Josh is incredibly talented, and he was one of those gets for the pod that I couldn't believe we got. He and I were in a movie called The Wedding Ringer together, directed by my friend Jeremy Gerlich, and he's hilarious in it. It's him and Kevin Hart, and I got to play for a day on it. And as you'll hear in the pod, he was nice enough to do the pod on like, I don't know, a couple days notice. And I just couldn't believe he said yes. So I felt really lucky. I'm such a big fan of Josh Gad. I feel like I come across a little bit giddy in this episode, but so be it. I'm a fan, and I couldn't believe he said yes, and I really appreciate him. So anyway, enjoy Josh. It's your old pal Josh Peck here. You are the first Josh that I am having on the show in addition to myself.
Well, you couldn't get Groban?
I bet I could get Groban. Groban's gettable.
I could call him right now. Do you want me to try him?
Please.
Okay, let's try him.
That's an immediate yes.
Okay, I'm going to try him right now. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. He's probably going to be like, why would you blindside me with this? You have to call my agents before contacting me. Let's see if maybe we just get his answer machine, but it's worth worth a shot.
Something tells me he didn't do his own outgoing message on his voicemail.
He didn't sing it, but I think he did it.
Really?
I do. We'll see.
Oh, this is very exciting.
Do we need to get him to sign a waiver over the phone? Like, how does the technical
I think this is
legalese
allowed,
of this work?
right?
I hope so.
I'm sure there's
What
something...
if he's always traveling? What if he's in like China right now and we're waking him up?
Cute. Let's go through all the famous people in your phone.
Okay, next up we're gonna try Emma Stone.
No.
Yeah, no,
Can't handle
no, we're
this.
not.
Come
we
on.
probably won't.
Yeah,
because,
Emma Stone.
Just no.
See, I knew it. There's no
It's really
outgoing
sad.
voicemail from
And now I'm
Josh
gonna get a
Groban.
return call, and he's gonna be like, "What's up?" And I go, "It's not urgent anymore because you didn't pick up when I needed you to."
Right.
And now you're just calling me, and I'm in the middle of something, and you know.
You dropped the ball, Groban.
You really did, Josh.
Speaking of Josh Groban, as I'm sure you know, Spielberg is doing West Side Story. Did you know that?
I did know.
Yes.
It was actually really ironic because I went to the John Williams Hollywood Bowl concert, and they did like a celebration of 100 years of Leonard Bernstein, and so they were playing a lot of West Side Story, and I was like, this has to be planned because Spielberg was also there,
Right.
So they're like gearing up for their next collab, and
Oh.
yeah. Are you suggesting that I should audition for it?
Well, I'm suggesting you should be straight offered it because you're Josh motherfucking Gad. But
Maybe Officer Krupke?
that's not terrible.
Well, it kind of is, but I'll accept it.
Terrible-ish.
Yeah.
It'd be terrible if it wasn't a Spielberg movie. But so I auditioned for it, or I put it on tape just because I hate myself and I like to do things that I have no shot at. And I sent my mom the audition thinking, and you know, I can sing kind of, and thinking my Jewish mother's going to be like, I am so blown away.
What did she say?
By your angelic tones, your dulcet pipes. She goes, it was really good for someone who's never trained.
Oh.
But they're probably going to give this to Josh Groban.
Oh, no, Mom.
And it was like this 1-2 punch of unintentional, complete honesty and truth. I'm like, of course they're going to give it to Josh Groban.
But I love the fact that like she had to like to add insult to injury. It had to be another Josh that got it.
Right.
Like, and at least like make it like Josh Hartnett, so it's like a like a return to form kind
Yes.
of story. Whereas just like we're bringing Josh Hartnett back.
Yeah. A beautiful,
Beautiful,
waspy
Pearl Harbor lead.
God.
God, yeah, God.
We don't see enough Josh Hartnett.
We don't.
Let's just stay on Josh's this whole
Let's figure out as many Joshes.
Josh Molina.
Josh Molina, Josh Lawson. There's another Josh.
Joshua Jackson.
Joshua Jackson.
Dawson's
Joshua
Creek.
Tree.
Joshua Tree. Yes. An incredible location.
And an incredible U2 album.
God.
Serves two purposes.
This is the best. I'm so
This
happy
is the
to
best.
see you.
I don't know what the theme of this podcast is, but this feels great.
We're in.
Like if the podcast is about attention deficit disorder, I feel like we're
We've
winning that
covered all the
podcast right
bases.
now.
Well, I just feel so honored that I threw a lob out and hit you up on Twitter, and I was like, I love Josh, and like maybe he'd reply.
Yeah.
Perhaps he would say yes to this.
There was a good chance I was going to say no too.
Don't I know it? And that is my greatest fear and trepidation about this whole podcasting in general. And can I tell you that I've had very few no's?
Really?
Yeah.
That surprised.
I mean, I don't have an insane network, but it's not bad.
You're so charming. Who can say no to you?
True.
Should we reach out to Tom Cruise together next and be like, look, I did it. It's harmless.
Yes.
Come on the show.
Spread the word.
Spread the love.
It's a joy. Who doesn't want to go to Mid Wilshire on a Friday afternoon?
I know, I don't. And had I known that that's where I was going to have to go, I probably would have said no. So it was smart of you to sort of hit me up first before you told me how far I needed to drive here.
Fair.
Yeah.
But I have an answer to that too because I have a mobile kit and I go to people's places.
I'm gonna have a word with my assistant. No, this is such a pleasure. You're so unbelievably talented, funny, wonderful, handsome, despite what your mother thinks. And
too good to me.
I love. We did one thing together, one time.
Yeah.
Wedding ringer, and you just came in with your nasty little self and stole that movie like a thief in shining armor. And I've wanted to tell you how much I resented you for doing that ever since that day.
Thank you,
Yeah.
my prince. It's funny too, and it speaks to your affability and generosity as a performer because, as you know, like you and Kevin were the leads of this movie, and the leads always set the tone. And I was just walking in as a day player. I'm in someone else's home. I'm like, is this a shoes on home or shoes off?
Which is always
Like,
so hard.
terrifying.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
And I remember, and it wasn't even on my coverage. It was the camera was on you guys, and it was sort of the first time I was doing this like silly speech that I had to do. And I remember you genuinely laughing
I was blown away.
and looking at me, going like, "Yeah, do that. Like
Yeah.
that's good shit." And I was like, "Thank you."
It was so funny. There's those outtakes. I've never seen them, but I would love to revisit them because you just literally went on and on and on forever, and it made me piss my pants.
Well, because if I had done that and you had like sort of cocked your head or like had a small aside to Kevin,
Yeah.
and then just been stone
It would have
faced,
been deeply uncomfortable.
I would have been like, I'm fucked.
Yeah. I should have done that just to throw you off your game a little bit
Yeah,
so that
you
you wouldn't
should've.
have stolen the movie from me, but I didn't think about it at the time. At the time, I'm like, I'm going to be generous.
Are you? Is that just an inherent thing, or was that learned from other people you'd work with? Just that magnanimous, being the mayor of the set.
I think it's just inherent. Like, I just can't. All joking aside, I literally can't imagine why somebody wouldn't be that. Like, it's so, having been on the other side of that, it's so off-putting to get on a set and have people just sort of like put up a wall
Yeah.
and make you feel unwelcome just because it's really not gonna benefit the environment. Certainly, I don't think it's gonna benefit the project. So it's like, why wouldn't you make everyone welcome in your home? It just doesn't ring as a thing to me.
But you've obviously had experiences like that, right?
Yes.
Yes. And what do you think it's born out of? My observation has been is that it's just ego run riot, where they feel threatened by anyone else who perhaps might be taking just the slightest bit of spotlight.
I found that it's particularly resonant on if you come in and do a TV series that's been on for quite some time, because that group, it's so secondhand for them, and that really is their house. That you're like coming in, and there's times when they are so embracing and they're so wonderfully, ensemble oriented, and there are times when they really are just like, come in, do your thing, get out. We want to get home before 8.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that, which I get. Like I do get it, but I don't know if it's like being jaded or just being over it. It's weird.
But is there, like I've experienced on certain things. I remember I did this show.
When do we start recording, by the way?
Eventually.
Okay.
We'll get into it slowly.
Great.
But
I'm excited.
No, we're live, baby. We've been live. This is happening. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go back to early Gad. Is your dad's an Afghani Jewish immigrant?
That is all those things are true.
Wow.
I'm
What's that
I'm
like?
gonna get like 52 death threats.
Tell me everything. Because I feel like being Jewish in like Ohio would be hard, but Afghanistan?
Right. No, he grew up in Afghanistan. He left when he was about 13 years old. I think at the time it was like sort of cool to like be like a Jew in Afghanistan, and then like around when he turned 13 it was sort of not cool anymore. So he was like, peace out, he and his family.
Yeah.
And they just sort of like moved on out.
And did he, I mean, obviously 13, that's like, he had memories, experiences. Did he miss it?
I don't think so.
No, he's happy to get out.
You know what I miss? Mountains and goats.
Right.
Like nobody's ever like, I really miss, because he was like, he literally grew up like by like a goat farm. It was like weird.
Like, yeah. God,
Yeah.
I miss well water.
I miss fresh well water.
Yeah.
But by all accounts, Afghanistan was and maybe still is beautiful land. Like
Yeah.
it just breathtakingly beautiful land. And I think just over the years, it's
Some of your neighbors suck. But that's anywhere.
unfortunate what's happened over there. Yeah.
And he landed in Florida?
No, no. My parents are now divorced. I don't actually speak to my dad very much, which is a side story. But it's, they met in New York, and then from there, they just got married and started this whole project called Josh Gad.
Wow.
And here I am.
Look at you.
Well, they said at the time, I remember they're like, do you think there will be something called a podcast in the future? And do you think it's worth creating a person who can be on one? And I think that mutually they came to the decision, yes,
Yeah.
that's a great plan.
This was a beautiful convergence of thoughts.
And then when they knew it was going to all be good, they were like, I think it's time to separate.
I think that, yeah, well, it's really forward thinking.
Yeah.
So you seem like you were a mom guy, because I'm a mom guy.
I'm totally a mom guy. My parents got separated when I was 6 years old. My mom is, everybody says this about their moms. It's sort of cliche, but my mom is literally the most kick-ass, incredible human being I've ever met. She raised 3 boys who all somehow ended up doing incredibly well for themselves. One of my brothers is a lawyer. My other brother is an incredible entrepreneur, and I'm sort of the black sheep of the family.
Really?
Kinda, yeah. And my brother always teased me because I did not do well in the early years of school. Like I think I was the first second grader ever to pull straight Fs. And
Strong.
Yeah, strong.
An F in drawing.
And he pulled me aside one day, and his classic line to me was, if you don't figure out what you want to do with your life, you're going to end up being the guy who puts pimentos in olives. And I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. I think they have machines that do that.
And let's
But,
not
like,
job shame.
Yeah, and let's
Jeffrey
not job
Owens,
shame.
Trader Joe's,
Actually,
respect.
by the way, my brother's name is Jeff. How excited are we for Jeffrey Owens, though, that like he's getting offered everything under the sun now?
He must be, right?
He is. I read about it today, and I was like, damn straight.
It's going to be next season on Fox, just Jeffrey.
The Jeffrey Show.
It's got to be, right?
Yes.
God bless him.
God bless him. He's incredible, and the way he's handled this entire, what I thought was a very shameful article, and shaming article, was inspired. And there was a great story that I read about the fact that before he was told that the article was going to come out, and he called up his son and started crying and just apologized for embarrassing him. And his son was basically like, you absolutely could never embarrass me by doing what you do to support me and the family. To just see the other side of that story now, and to see that I think he's got like a 10-episode arc on Tyler Perry show and like a lot of other opportunities. It's really heartening. It's incredible that people come out and are like, you know what? We're going to lift up your spirits, and you do deserve an opportunity. So I thought that was amazing to see.
Do you think he'll face like that one coworker at Trader Joe's who's kind of a hater, who's going to be like, oh, word?
Probably.
You too good for us, G?
There's probably like, there's also probably just a little bit of jealousy there. It's like,
Sure.
But it's also like, the American dream. If he can do it, I can do it too, even though like he was a really famous actor and like should still be. So I think that there probably is a little bit of that.
I just imagine his last day. I mean, that's a good question, right? So he must have some shifts on the books coming up at TJ's. Does he go back?
They apparently told him, you will always have a job here, which I'm sure is a little self-serving too, because it's like now the most famous Trader Joe's in America.
Right.
But it's also awesome that like they're part of the story. They're just fully embracing this man and saying, thank you for everything that you've done. And we understand that there's another chapter in your life, but if you ever want to come back here, our doors are open.
And thank you for not working at ShopRite.
Exactly.
It's great publicity. Is there a part of you, and I think all people, who've had any measure of success, it touches them in a visceral way of like, God, like if my life or my career had some tough turns, I could, have to take an hourly job that was challenging.
Well, this story is a reminder of how fickle our industry is. I remember reading an article when I first started out on Broadway doing a show called 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee in the New York Times. That was basically Broadway is a great job if you can afford it, was essentially the principle of the article. And I remember when my expectations for what I would be once I got my first big break were very clear in my head, but in reality were very different. And living in New York City was like not an option. And so I would get on a public bus and basically do my show until about 10 o'clock at night, and then have to go an hour away to Jersey, stay with a friend on their couch just because I really couldn't afford the kind of rent that was needed. And here I was, a lead on Broadway, and I was actually doing another job at the same time. I was coaching for schools, doing speech and debate. And it was really so crazy to me that like there is that sort of thing where you're, even when you're at the top and you're pursuing your dream and you think that you've achieved everything you wanted to do, there's a reality to it as well. And so I think we're always one job away from not being relevant. And, you know, to me, it's all about saving and being smart and knowing that, you know, you can never be so arrogant to assume that that won't happen to you, that you won't be relevant one day.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but I guess it applies to every job. It applies to everybody. But yeah, I always pinch myself that A, I get to do what I get to do, B, that I'm paid to do what I wanted to do growing up, and also that I haven't screwed up so badly yet to have that taken away from me, knowing that I've had a couple of close calls and will continue to. So there's the utmost gratitude to the universe that all of those things are things that I hoped for and prayed for, wanted, but also the expectation that it doesn't always last forever.
When you say close calls, you mean like you've said something that was misinterpreted, or just careers things?
Just careers things.
Yeah.
Like I really have had, I think like anybody has, you know, choices that I've made that have paid off greatly. Choices that I've made that I regret.
I got those.
Yeah, but
yeah.
you go. What a lot of people don't understand is we never go into a project thinking, "Ooh, I can't wait to make something horrible or bad." Right?
We have such great.
We have such great hopes for it all.
Ah.
And that's the thing is like you go in eyes wide open because you believe in something. You believe that it's A, really funny. You believe, two, it could be artistically worthy of your time. Or C, you think that you're signing on to something that is bulletproof, that just feels like a hit, right? And then it doesn't. And then it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And a lot of times, you know, people are like, why would they choose to be a part of that? It just seems so clear. And what people don't realize is well, it wasn't clear. When you got the offer, when you got the script, there were driving forces there that led to a very different path than where the piece ended up.
It's a weird alchemy and like lightning in a bottle when something actually is great.
Yeah.
And it's not only critically acclaimed, but then also successful, like monetarily.
Yeah.
And you're so right, because I always say this, like, you know, it used to be more of a thing when they shot on film, but producers, directors would go and watch dailies. And they would watch what you shot the day before and make sure that it looked good. And even for the worst movies ever, a producer has never walked out of dailies and gone, we're in fucking trouble.
Right.
Like they've always, like on fucking Geely, I can promise you the producers walked out of that room and went, we got something special. This is going to be the Ben Affleck vehicle we've been looking for.
You know what's funny is having done now quite a few animated projects. It's so interesting to see how the alchemy of those things works compared to live action, because there's a much healthier process whereby they can literally make the movie over and over and over again and tear it apart over and over and over again until they have a product worthy of an audience. And in features, in live action features, the problem is really comes down to like scheduling, availability. And once that ball is rolling, it's really hard to stop the train.
Yeah.
And, more recently, there have been some high profile firings and things like that, but none of that is healthy for a project either. And so what happens is unless you have a massive budget where you can afford to schedule reshoots ahead of time, you're sort of in it to win it at that point. And it does suck, but you're right. Like, everybody goes in with the expectations that what we're doing is great.
Yeah.
Until it's not. And then everybody wants to be like, oh, peace out. I can't be a part of this.
Do you have any stories? Like, I remember I worked on this little independent movie once in Cape Cod where it was, of course, the life story of the director, and God bless her, but she would like cry. Because it was like having post-traumatic stress about the events that had happened in her life that we were performing now. And then 3 weeks in, we had 2 weeks left, and it's a night shoot on a Friday night. And all of a sudden, around 10 o'clock at night, there's like this chatter that's coming over the set. And people are going, I hear we're getting shut down. We're out of money. We're out of money. We're getting shut tonight. And everyone's like, but this movie is so good. It's impossible. Never. Couldn't. And then about 6 more hours comes by. It's like, there's no second meal. We're getting fucking shut down.
My God.
And then by like sunrise, you see like all the producers and the director in a huddle. And then they address the crew. They're like, guys, we've run out of money. And we're going to have to shut down production, and hopefully we'll finish. And we actually did finish in Van Nuys, California. And you haven't seen the movie for good reason.
That particular thing has never happened to me.
Right.
There have been very dysfunctional sets. There's a movie that I will not mention that was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I did it for the wrong reasons. I did it for a paycheck, and I was pretty early on in my career. And
which happens,
which
right?
happens.
You got to pay the bills.
Exactly. I love that your coworker is now Googling what I've done and what I could possibly have regretted this much. And so, like, you're sort of at the whim and mercy of a lot of fickleness. And
why was it not? We don't have to get into detail, but why was it bad? Was it the?
It was an impossible situation. The person overseeing the film, not the director, was unhealthily volatile, and very hands-on in a way that was not beneficial to the process. The director was a first-time director and was, I think, probably a little in over his head and wanting to please the studio, and the movie itself just wasn't very good. And I think that a lot of those elements just really coalesced into something that was untenable. But that is also one of the great lessons and experiences, and I wouldn't trade it in for the world. And I actually had a lot of fun in the process, and I love the people I met during it, but it was one of those lessons that's an important lesson to learn, which is, why are you doing this? And it actually was fundamentally the reason I ended up doing Book of Mormon, which changed my life, because I realized at that moment, is this what you want to do? Do you want to settle and take a job to take a paycheck and take a job to, be in a movie, or do you want to do something that elevates you and elevates your craft and in of itself is worthy of attention and is worthy of potential sacrifices, including financial sacrifices? And the answer after that was a resounding yes. But prior to that, I sort of had this ambition of, I want to be a rich actor and,
movie star.
I want to be a movie star.
Of course.
And a lot of people were like, why are you going to do a show that isn't yet fully financed, is sort of like really potentially a lightning rod in terms of controversy? And it was because I was like, I needed that. I needed the therapy that came from throwing myself into a situation that was so uncertain.
And that you believed it.
And that I believed
fundamentally. Hello, this is Dorothy from the Curious Promo Ad Department. We've got a quick little advertisement for you, and then we'll get right back to that kooky, crazy Josh Peck. Yo, guys, do you know what Mack Weldon is? Well, let me tell you. Their mission is simple: to make sure all your basics and beyond are smartly designed, and shopping for them is easy and convenient. Because Mack Weldon was founded because they wanted more out of their basics and always questioned how something so essential could be such a pain in the butt to buy. Mack Weldon is a premium men's essentials brand that believes in smart design and premium fabrics, and it's going to be the most comfortable underwear, socks, shirts, undershirts, hoodies, and sweatpants that you will ever wear. They even have like this silver underwear line and shirts that are naturally antimicrobial. And that word is not easy for me to say, but I'll tell you what is easy: not stinking at the gym because my shirt is holding on to weird odors. Nope, not my Mack Weldon shirt. Sorry, odor. But it was seriously easy. I signed up. It took like a couple clicks at best. I told them my measurements, that I have like weird, short, stumpy legs and a long torso. And they were like, got you, bro. No problem. So listen, for 20% off your first order, visit MackWeldon.com, enter promo code CURIOUS at checkout. That's 20% off your first order. Visit MackWeldon.com, enter promo code CURIOUS.
How is a show written by Matt and Trey not fully financed?
Well, remember at the time, a lot of people forget this, but like the first time I heard the music to Book of Mormon,
Oh my God.
I remember being sent the album and I hear the first song, "Hello, my name is Elder Price." And I was like, this is great. And I hear, "2 by 2, we go from door to door." And I'm like, this is brilliant. And then I hear, "Hasadiga Ibla." And I'm like, what does that mean? Literally like the character of Elder Cunningham. And then I hear the follow-up, "Fuck you." And I was immediately on the phone with my agent saying, I can't do this. And my agent was like, well, it's Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Of course you can. And I go, no, I can't. And they said, why? And I go, because I'll be shot probably if I do this.
Right, on the street.
On the street. And I like played it for them and they're like, no, you cannot do this. And then I went and I did the first reading of it and I white knuckled it during that song, and fucking Trey and Matt were onto something because I just started seeing shoulders shaking and then this sound coming out of people's mouths that was just pure, unadulterated, holy shit laughter. And I never looked back. And that was a 3-year process. That was a 3-year journey from the first workshop we ever did, first reading, to the Broadway debut.
Will you take us through, and when I say us, I mean me and the listeners.
Yes.
We take it, because I think that's
you
fascinating.
and your mom, basically, is what we're talking about right now.
It may be nice if you said a little something to her, if you know she's listening.
Listen, hi, Mrs. Peck. This is the other Josh, not Groban.
Fair.
I learned the hard way today not to send you my West Side Story audition.
Yes.
But I hope all is well. See you at Rosh Hashanah dinner.
That's so nice. Well, and that's 2 days away, so don't you make promises you can't keep. So what does that look like? Because I interviewed Wayne Brady a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about, because he was so close with Lin-Manuel and sort of the process of putting Hamilton on its feet, even though he wasn't, the original Burr. What does that look like over those 3 years? Like, what are the touchstones of that process where you're seeing it sort of evolve and become the phenomenon?
Fascinating.
I bet.
Well, what people don't really know is that Book of Mormon, when it was first pitched to me, and we did the very first reading, they were leaning towards it being an animated movie. First of all, it was not meant for the stage. And in fact, at the very first reading we did, there were these projected sketches of like animatics of what they were thinking of. And it was fascinating. And then the incredible producer, Scott Rudin, was in the audience. And he had produced South Park movie Team America.
He's the biggest dog in the world.
Master, yeah. And he approached them after, and he spoke to their incredible producer, Ann Garofino, who produces South Park. And he said to her, this has to be a stage show. And I think she agreed. And the two of them, along with Trey and Matt and Bobby Lopez, who wrote the music, then sort of shifted their attention to, well, what would that look like? And so over the course of the next 3 years, we would drop into New York for about 2 week stints, 2 or 3 weeks, and we would put it up on its feet for an audience. And the very first reading we ever did, it was literally one act, and there was no chorus to man up. It just literally ended up with the act ended with me going, "Man up," and that was it. And that was like the end of the show. And so like they were trying to figure out, okay, what's the story we want to tell? And the second workshop, we didn't get the second act until the day before we performed it for an audience. And I kept joking, are you going to give us a second act like as we're going on stage?
Right.
And they basically did. And so from there, this structure of the piece really started to come together. And then for the next 2 years, what was happening, what was apparent was that Cunningham was overpowering the story. And not in a great way, but the comedy of the character was so brash and so in your face and so it was too funny for its own good in some ways, the way they had written him, that the Price wasn't able to really shine through. And it was the final workshop. They brought me in to read with a couple of different guys, and this young guy who I hadn't heard of, Andrew Rannells, walks in, and he reads with me, and it was the first time in my journey with the show that I had ever shit my pants, because I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to work now.
Right.
And it was
upped your game.
It upped my game, and it was that's when the show clicked. That's when it really came to life. And you know, I believe was written late into the process, but once that song was written, the show really just soared. It made sense. The theme finally came together.
And when was that moment, that definitive, like, was it in previews or, because like with Hamilton, they talk about like that last public theater performance where they were like, yep, this is, when did it, where you're like,
first preview, very first preview. I remember there was an article that had come out written by Michael Rydell, and it was basically talking about how there were going to be protests on the street when the show opened, and the show was going to close fairly quickly. And essentially, it was going to be a big story for all the wrong reasons because of the controversy that it was going to cause. And I bought into that. I was like, shit, I'm going to start looking for my next job now. And that first preview happened, and the audience was electric. And then it was actually the next day when I got back to the theater, I saw a mob of people waiting outside the theater, and I was like, what's this about?
Yeah.
And I walk in, and I'm like, why are there like 400 people outside the theater? And they said, well, they're here for lottery tickets. I said, what? He goes, well, we're selling out pretty quickly now. And then I got back the next day, and there were 1,000 people outside.
Oh, shit.
And then all of a sudden, it became, in the blink of an eye, an event. And it just hit us so quickly. And from there, it just became a tidal wave. Like, there was no stopping this thing that, up until that point, really the only other example of that was a Producers, until, of course, Hamilton.
Yeah.
So it was like this, this once-in-a-decade sort of thing that just transcends every expectation for as an event. You have Wicked, you have Producers, you have Hamilton, you have Book of Mormon. Those are very special moments in the history of theater where it was so unexpected for us, or at least for me. And when it happened, there was no turning back.
And how long does that stick where because we're all working towards that moment of like where it all comes together and has this like beautiful fusion. How long do you live in that? And then when does it just become like, man, 8 shows a week is a lot?
6 months.
Yeah.
6 months in, I realized it was a job. A year in, I realized that it was work. And a year and a half in, I realized that it was time.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm doing a disservice to the audience by staying in the show, because I can't. And the only reason I stayed past a year was because Andrew was staying, the cast was still pretty much all intact, and I didn't want to be the first guy to leave. and I sort of wanted to leave alongside Andrew. I thought that that was the right journey. But I probably should have left because I was bitter the last 6 months or 5 months. I was like, oh God, I can't do this anymore.
And are you maintaining, like, are you protecting your voice every day?
That was it. I mean,
Yeah.
my amazing vocal teacher at the time, she said to me, the hardest job about doing a Broadway show is staying healthy and well enough to do it. And I sort of took it for granted, and I was getting so beat up. I was constantly getting sick. I would get sinus infections. The weather, having a newborn baby. Good luck, Josh.
Thank you.
Get ready. Basically occupying a theater that was moldy and dusty and old. Those things are not really conducive to good health.
Yes.
And so it took a toll. And on top of that, you know, having to go literally work on my voice every day to have a voice to do the show was its own exercise in, you know, it was all a lot. It was all a lot. Not to say it wasn't worth it. And the end justified the means, but it was hard. It was hard.
6 months in, do you guys start fucking with each other within the show just to keep it exciting?
One day in.
One day in.
Oh man, like that was part of it. Is I literally I couldn't leave in part because I was having too much fucking fun on the stage doing my own show that wasn't being seen by the audience, and that was fun. And that cast and I to this day have a brotherhood and sisterhood that is, I can't imagine it ever being topped in terms of, you know, relationships that develop from a communal creative experience. And so it was so fun.
Oh, yeah.
It was so fun. And we would just constantly set out to make each other laugh.
Did you ever hear, over the years, have like Mormons come up to you and been like, that's not really how it goes? Like, have you ever talked face to face with a Mormon about the depiction?
So you know what's funny is I've never been like accosted by a Mormon, but I've actually, the opposite has happened to me, where people have come up to me who said to me, I saw your show and it made me convert to the Mormon church.
Wow.
And I was like, I think you may have missed the message.
They were like, the
But I was
songs
like,
were just
great.
catchy.
I was like, great. But at the same time, they did get the message. I mean, the message really is, it's kind of a very pro-faith show. That's the irony of the show.
Yeah.
Is like, even though it sets it out as like, it's crazy that we believe in the things that we believe sometimes, believing in of itself is worthy of the endeavor, right? Like that idea of I believe, that gives you, or a lot of us, what we need in order to deliver on that message in a great way. And I think the spirituality that is part of that is what's made this show connect now for close to a decade. Is people leave with this uplifting message, even though the journey to get there is crazy.
Bugged out.
It's bugged out, but it is. And by the way, Mormon Church has brilliantly exploited the opportunity that was our show.
Oh, yeah.
There's a giant page in our program promoting the LDS.
Really?
Oh yeah, since the beginning.
Those Latter-day
Which I was like,
Saints
that's
are brilliant.
brilliant. Like, it's brilliant.
Fuck yes.
This is genius.
If there was a book of Scientology, there's no way that they would be advertising.
No.
They take themselves too seriously.
And part of the reason that I think Trey and Matt knew that the only religion that they could do this with, even though it's an expose on religion itself and not just Mormons, is because the Mormons are so unbelievably generous. They're so unbelievably kind and so unbelievably passionate, but also joyful in many ways. And so they were able to laugh at it, I think, in a really wonderful way.
Do you think, so I have a story, and I'm not sure if it's true, so please strike it down if it isn't. Mm-hmm. I had heard, and I don't know if it was with the original cast or with one of the touring casts of Book of Mormon, that Matt and Trey came and, usually, Lin-Manuel, after he left Hamilton, probably didn't go to see a lot of the performances because, these people become very busy. And that they went to go see a performance of Book of Mormon. And, it had gotten into this rhythm, as anything does, where people start adding a little bit, a little oomph to jokes, to things, to their own interpretation of it. Because
Right.
you've done it now 8 shows a week for months on end. And I heard that Matt and Trey were so specific that they sat the cast down and said, stop it. Like, whatever this little extras things that you're doing
Yeah.
that's getting a laugh is taking away, like, by you getting a laugh at beat 2, you're fucking up the payoff at beat 10.
I think I've heard that story. That did not happen with our cast, but I'm surprised it didn't because we were definitely towards the end in Looney Land. But it was, it's a product of, one, overstaying your welcome and keeping it fresh. 2, it's a game of telephone.